On this F150 2.7 EcoBoost, P0234 is an overboost type fault. In plain terms, the PCM may be seeing turbocharger boost pressure higher than expected, or higher than the desired boost value long enough to set the fault. The truck may have reduced power, inconsistent boost, or other boost control symptoms. Broadly, this can involve an intake air or charge air concern, a turbocharger bypass valve or bypass circuit concern, a turbocharger wastegate motor concern, or a possible PCM concern. Treat this as a controlled diagnosis, not a parts call. This level of testing assumes you're comfortable with Ford-style scan tool PIDs, circuit checks, and boost control operation. Start with the basic system checks. If other turbocharger control circuit codes are present, diagnose and repair those first, before chasing P0234 or any range or performance concern. For P0234, once the circuit code priority is handled, move into the turbocharger system checks. If the original conditions are not happening in the bay, the vehicle may need to be driven to duplicate the conditions that set the fault. Next, do a careful visual inspection of the turbocharger system. Look at the wastegate and bypass control harness routing and connections, intake tubing and intake manifold leaks, electrical connections, exhaust leaks or damage, turbocharger oil leaks, restricted or damaged oil return tubes, turbocharger damage, missing or disconnected wastegate linkage or retainers, and the wastegate motor linkage adjustment and assembly. Move the wastegate linkage with slow, steady pressure toward the motor and then away from it. If you find a concern, repair it as needed, clear the PCM DTCs, and rerun the self-test. If the visual check is clean, continue into the bypass valve circuit checks. With the ignition off, disconnect the TCBY valve connector. Turn the ignition on and check voltage at C1622 pin 1. You need greater than 10.5 volts. If it is not greater than 10.5 volts, repair the open circuit, clear the PCM, DTCs, and rerun the self-test. Next, with the ignition off and the PCM disconnected, check the control circuit from C1622 pin 2 to C1232E pin 102 on the 2.7L EcoBoost. Resistance should be less than 5 ohms. If it is not, repair the open circuit. Then check C1622 pin 2 for a short to ground. Resistance should be greater than 10,000 ohms. If it is not, repair the short circuit. After that, turn the ignition on and check C1622 pin 2 for a short to voltage. Any voltage present means repair the short circuit. If those circuit checks pass, check the TCBY valve resistance between C1622 pin 2 and C1622 pin 1 on the component side. It should be between 5 to 60 ohms. If it is outside that range, install a new component in question, clear the PCM DTCs, and rerun the self-test. If the bypass valve circuit and component resistance pass, reconnect the PCM and the TCBY valve as applicable. Turn the ignition on and monitor the bypass and wastegate position PDs. While watching the scan data, wiggle, shake, and bend small sections of the harness from the component back to the PCM. Any PID change means isolate that area, repair it as needed, clear the PCM DTCs, and rerun the self-test. If the harness does not react, lightly tap the suspect component and wiggle its connector while watching the same kind of PID response. If the PID changes during that road shock check, install a new component in question, clear the PCM DTCs, and rerun the self-test. If there is still no change, move on to the turbocharger performance checks. Now treat it like a boost performance concern. With the ignition off, check the air filter element and housing for contamination, restriction, or water intrusion. Check the air inlet, turbocharger plumbing, intake manifold area, charge air cooler system, exhaust system, turbocharger oil return area, and the turbocharger itself. Also look for aftermarket exhaust accessories, performance modifications, tailpipe changes that add restriction, and any restricted exhaust concern. Circuit concerns need to be handled before performance concerns. If anything is found, repair it as needed, clear the PCM DTCs, and rerun the self-test. If the visual performance check is clean, smoke the charge air and intake system. Disconnect the CAC tube at the throttle body, temporarily plug the CAC tube outlet, bag the air filter to block airflow out the intake port, reinstall it, and fill the intake air system with smoke using an appropriate smoke machine and adapter. Check for leaks and restrictions. When that check is done, reinstall the sensor, reconnect the CAC tube to the throttle body, and remove the plastic bag from the air filter. If the system has no leaks or restrictions, check bypass valve operation. Command the bypass off, command the wastegate duty cycle to 0%, command RPM as directed, and record TCBP. If you are using the accelerator pedal instead of command control, hold the engine at approximately 2000 RPM, then command the bypass on and record TCBP again. The TCBP PID value may decrease by 0.97 kPa, 0.14 psi, or less when the TCBY valve is commanded on. The key decision is whether TCBP decreases. If it does decrease, continue. If it does not decrease, install a new turbocharger bypass solenoid, clear the PCM DTCs, and rerun the self-test. After the bypass operation checks, inspect the turbocharger wastegate actuators. With the ignition off, look for damaged, disconnected, or missing wastegate linkage or retainers. Move the linkage with slow, constant force toward the wastegate motor and then away from it. Also inspect the wastegate motor, harness, and connectors for housing damage, connector damage, cross circuits, pushed-out pins, corrosion, and incorrect connections. If you find a concern, repair it as needed. Clear the PCM DTCs and rerun the self-test. If that check's clean, inspect the turbocharger compressor wheel and housing. Make sure the wheel spins freely, listen for noise while spinning, and look for vane damage, imbalance, or debris in the housing. If a concern is present there, install a new turbocharger assembly, clear the PCM DTCs, and rerun the self-test. If no mechanical concern is found, continue into the wastegate motor circuit checks. For the wastegate motor circuit side, turn the ignition off and disconnect both turbocharger wastegate motor connectors. Turn the ignition on and check VREF and SIG-RTN for the P0234 path on the 2.7L EcoBoost at C1210 pin 4 to C1210 pin 2. Voltage should be between 4.5 volts to 5.5 volts. If it is not, pause and handle the VREF and SIG-RTN diagnostic path before going farther. If VREF and SIG-RTN are correct, turn the ignition off, disconnect the PCM, and check the wastegate motor circuits for opens. The resistances should be less than 5 ohms. Then check for shorts to ground. The resistances should be greater than 10 k ohms. Next, check for circuits shorted together. Those resistances should also be greater than 10 k ohms. Turn the ignition on and check for a short to voltage. Any voltage present means repair the short circuit, clear the PCM DTCs, and rerun the self-test. If no voltage is present, check the internal resistance of the turbocharger wastegate motor. On the 2.7L EcoBoost P0234 path, measure between C1210 pin 5 and C1210 pin 1 on the component side. It should be between 1 to 90 ohms. If it is not, install a new turbocharger wastegate motor in question and reset cam. If it passes, reconnect the wastegate motor connectors and PCM, turn the ignition on, and monitor the wastegate position PIDs while wiggling, shaking, and bending small harness sections from each wastegate motor to the PCM. If the PIDs show a concern, repair it as needed, clear the PCM DTCs, and rerun the self-test. If not, move to the position check. Before checking wastegate position, remember that failure mode operation may limit vehicle function and may keep the wastegates from operating normally if there is a harness or component concern. Cycle the ignition on, off, and back on. Monitor W-gate A pause PCT and W-gate B pause PCT. Press the accelerator pedal fully to the floor, wait 3 seconds, and record the PID values. Release the accelerator pedal fully and immediately record the PID values again. Make sure the pedal is fully applied and fully released for those readings. If the values are not within the applied and released ranges, adjust the turbocharger wastegate motor linkage, clear DTCs, and rerun the self-test. If P0234 comes back, where the linkage is not adjustable, continue to the final connector check. Disconnect all PCM connectors and both turbocharger wastegate motor connectors. Inspect for pushed-out pins and corrosion. Reconnect everything and make sure the connectors are fully seated. Then verify whether the concern is still present. If it is still present on this P0234 path, install a new turbocharger wastegate motor in question and reset KAM. If it is not present, the system is operating correctly at this time, and the concern may have been caused by a loose or corroded connector. Verify the repair and confirm P0234 stays gone. Takeaway: work this code in order. Prove the bypass and wastegate controls before condemning hardware, and do not skip the connector and harness movement checks. For more diagnostic training, visit stepdiagnostics.com.